I'm Ed Drabik, and I've been coming to Bethel for about a year and a half now. I was raised in a very Christian family, going to church every Sunday, that whole thing, very structured religious side of things, which was fine when I was growing up until I was like, I don't know, 12 or 13 years old. And just some mishaps started happening with my family, and we had to move, and things were just going a little bit crazy. And I didn't have any kind of a relationship with God. So I just figured, good things happen if you're a Christian. So why are bad things happening? Which started like me questioning my faith, and then eventually turning into like a real resentment for God, to the point where I just decided that if there was in fact a God, I stood against him. It really, it broke my mom's heart that I wasn't a believer. So she would always, try to bring it up. And at one point, she invited me to this church, and said hey, this is an after church thing. It's called Alpha. It's a place to ask the difficult questions of Christianity. Would you be willing to go? The second time I went, they asked me to never come back. Just I was asking too many questions, and I was like, oh, great. Again, I'm an enemy of God. Then. Clearly he doesn't even want me in his church. And that kind of kept spiraling and just led me to, emptiness, which then I just filled with darkness. It was, whether that was just drinking a ton or smoking or being in relationships I had no business being in, that kind of thing, where it was just, I was consistently choosing what I knew to be wrong because I hated God. And it just led to a point where I didn't care. I felt nothing. I would talk to my family. They would be like, I don't know your voice. There's nothing in me left. There's a point where an individual pulled a gun on me, and I just looked at him and I was like, please, pull the trigger. It just didn't care. The regard for my own life was gone. Finally, at one point, I remember I was sitting in my apartment. I finally kind of broke down, and I said, fine, I'll pray. Fine. If you're there, if you're real, Lord, I need strength. I need help because I can't do this. I'm not going to make it. And I didn't really know what to do from there. So I was like, now what? And I happened to, in my apartment, to have this Bible. So I was like, okay, maybe I should look at the Bible. So right after praying for strength, I grabbed the Bible, and there's a bookmark in the Bible. And I look, and I open up to that page, and I'm looking around the page for something. I'm not seeing anything, and then I just look at the bookmark itself, and it just says, I will strengthen you. And it had a verse at the bottom, it said Isaiah 41:10. So I quickly figure out where Isaiah is in the Bible, and I'm looking through it, and I get to Isaiah 41:10. And it goes on to say, I will strengthen you, and I will help you. And I just broke down. This feeling of, I just fought for 18 years and cursed the Lord and wanted to be against him. And the moment I cried out for help, he's like, gotcha. Just in an instant, just all of that. And the anger, all that feeling is just gone. And I just sat there crying for the longest time, not understanding it, but knowing, God is real and God cares and I don't deserve it. After all of that, he still was just, I've got you. I'm right here. And he was. And it just dramatically changed me. That definitely happened gradually, right? Which I love to see, that, looking back at it, God didn't just shove me right into things. It was hey, let me show you that I'm real. I'm right here now that you asked me. Thanks for coming. Okay, but I didn't know what that meant yet. So it just kind of kept gradually happening. And, luckily I had a friend, John, who the Lord kept kind of keeping us together, even though we both moved around a lot. And I remember he came over to my apartment one night when I lived in Pennsylvania. And I don't remember exactly how the conversation went, but I think at some point I just said, God is good. And he just stared at me. He was like, huh? Yeah. And I just remember we both just cried and just prayed in that apartment. And then when John was going to give his first sermon here before he was one of the pastors, he was just like, hey, I'd appreciate it if you could come, just be there. That'd be really cool, just to support. And at the time I was like, yeah, absolutely. Not like making the connection in my head that I hadn't stepped foot in a church in 10 years since I'd been kicked out of one. But I just remember coming here and just being moved and just worshiping and then hearing the message. And I was just like, I'm coming back. And that just led me to continuing to kind of further relationship. I remember talking to Pastor Brady and being like, I don't know how to read the Bible. What do you think? And he was like, here's a Bible reading plan in a year for the New Testament. He's like, it's 5 minutes, 5 days a week. That's it. And I was like, I can do that. I wanted to grow more. So like that emptiness transformed into like hunger, like wanting to be more understanding and having conversations and, you know, speaking to other people and, you know, whether that be people who are like, oh, God can't be good. And I'm like, oh, he can though. Like, let me tell you why. Like, and just that kind of, that transformation that I've seen starting in my life and continuing to work in my life, just where it was like, now I wanted a relationship with the Lord. I knew that I could have a personal relationship, which I think is what I never understood in the time that I was lost, was that like God has a personal relationship with each person. The truth is like God took the darkness and turned it into light, like in my life, just so clearly.